Okay, so metal.
Metal.
The show's about metal.
What is metal? We're going to spread the hidden value in music.
We're going to proselytize. We're going to get the word out there.
We are.
That's important.
Whoa! Welcome, everybody, to the Great Metal Podcast with Shredmaster Scott, Just Pete, and the Metal Evangelist. It's episode 80. Episode 80, man.
We're feeling old.
80.666-42069. That's the exact number.
Oh, man, that's it. And I think we're probably pretty close to Joe Rogan, but might still have a few episodes to go.
We might have
another
like 900,000 hours though, because all his episodes are like 8 hours, and ours are like an hour.
Yeah.
We'll catch him eventually. We're gonna catch him soon.
Yeah. But we
He's
talk
out running
about
with the devil. That'll slow him down.
You got to run to the hills though.
A little bit about some cooler stuff. Not always. Like he had Dave Mustaine on, so he's getting his metal fix in there. But we talk about metal every week.
That's true. Yeah, extra dose. I would love to have Dave on like every week and be like, now, Dave, does it bother you that Metallica stole your music? Just on that.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Because that's what Joe asked him. He's like, no, none of that bothers me. And then he just went on a total tirade about how they stole all of his solos on the first 3 records.
Yeah, it's tough. But, the thing is, and actually we're going to touch on this today, one genre stealing another genre's ideas, because, today we're talking about, more classical music for metalheads, right? Build your chops.
Classical. I mean, how does the saying go? Or the meme? It's like, is metal music or is classical music just metal before electricity? Right. That's kind of like the question, because a lot of metalheads claim that classical is related to metal.
Yeah. This is, if you guys really want to get into some flame wars, get on Reddit on the metal boards, because they just go violently over this topic. Like I was reading some great fights, and it's like amazing. you have like the music theory guys, and they break down like, no, metal doesn't have anything more in common with classical music than any other genre. They all use the same chords, and most.
I
need
Reddit in my life, Luke. I need Reddit, more Reddit. I never go to Reddit. So you were deep in these threads though, and checking.
Oh yeah. And then you always get the other guys that are like, no. Metal shares more commonalities with classical music than any other genre. Basically, they come down to like there's like the roots are like. The classical, and here's the thing, we kind of have to define this a little bit. When we say classical music, classical, it was just like a stylistic period, right? There was like, Baroque period, the classical period, the romantic period. So when we say classical music, we're actually saying what, like orchestral, it's like music written for an orchestra or a
I think that's what a lot of people think. Yeah, when they use the term classical, but it's actually, the period. So following the Baroque period, which is 1685, 1750, that was Bach. And then from 1750 to 1830 or whatever it was, that's classical. That's where Beethoven was in, and they also call that like the romantic era.
So when they started making the money, they were Baroque before that.
They were Baroque. Nice job. If it ain't Baroque, don't fix it. Baroque and roll actually is something Yngwie Malmsteen, that was a title of one of his records. And that's an important distinction, because guys like Yngwie are obviously very related to the classical style, right? I don't know if you found anything about that on the message boards, but then it's something like Black Sabbath. Well, that's more about blues. But that being said, the Black Sabbath, the song, that was inspired by Gustav Holst's Mars, the Bringer of War, which now in the way that you're using the term, right, Luke, classical just being orchestral instruments, yes, right? But, Gustav Holst wrote that piece in 1912 or something. So it wasn't during the classical period. but is using, orchestral instruments. That probably creates a lot of confusion, I would think, on these message boards.
Well,
But
that period defined somewhat of a sound and instrument type, right? That then I think when you can also refer to it as things in the classical style, right? It's almost like a beer in the
right.
Belgian style, right? It might not have been brewed
Yeah.
in Belgium, but it's
Sure.
in the Belgian style.
And one of the main things we talk about in terms of what is metal is strong expression, right? That comes through in things like heavily distorted guitars, double kick drums and screaming. And the Romantic period, and Beethoven in particular, really pushed forward that mode of self-expression, right?
Yeah.
So really think about bum, 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 bum. That's just like in your face. They call it the fate theme. That's fate knocking at the door. That's a really powerful, it's a very metal mode of expression.
Yeah,
I
very
think,
dramatic.
Symmetry maybe has adequately caught our current era we're in
the WAP
current
juice era
of WAP juice.
Triple shrooms, WAP juice.
Yeah, we need to get out of the WAP juice era. We just really do. Oh gosh. Well,
it's a disaster.
So no, so I mean this is really good to kind of define the terms. I think in general it's really hard to pick, get so detailed to be specific about what we're talking. When I'm particularly for this episode, when I use the term classical music, I'm referring to like all periods of classical music, all periods of orchestral symphonic music, and we've got some really good. Every time Shred hit me up earlier this week and he's like, man, we should do another show on classical music. And then I just went down this classical music hole. Every time I start listening to classical music, I'm like, this is incredible stuff.
I know. You have to, it's like ice cream is like pop music and it's so good, going down initially, but then you feel like crap afterwards. Classical music is like, a good nutritious meal. It's less appealing up front, but then afterwards you're like, wow, I feel so good. After doing that, it's like going to the gym. It's hard initially, but then when you get back, you have that euphoria from all the pleasure chemicals, and oxygen and blood released. It's incredible if you can just, force yourself to start.
You got to
start. I watched
a
good 45 minutes of two-set violins live concerto the other day. It was amazing, and it just. It's not appealing to watch that stuff initially, right? Because there's not an overdose of sexuality and whatever lifestyle stuff that we find appealing in pop music videos. But man, does it make you feel good? It's so rich and deep, so much value.
It really is, and there's such an emphasis on melody that. You hear melodic lines that you just don't hear in like modern day pop or country or that kind of thing.
Oh, dude.
And so it's really good. But the other thing is they use techniques like instrument techniques that you rarely see in mainstream stuff. Like for instance, I noticed how often in orchestral music they do the trill, just back and forth between two notes. You do see that in metal, in like solos and stuff like that. You probably see it in jazz. I don't know. I don't listen to a lot of jazz. But where else do you hear people doing trills? I mean, it's just not a thing. And but it's a really cool technique, when applied.
It's very expressive. And that's the name of the game with techniques, right? It's about the strong expression. Yeah, it's just way deeper. But you talking about the melodies thing reminds me again of Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, bum, 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 that one. And if you listen to that piece, it's actually pretty simple on the face of it. But then there's all of these layers of melodies, simple melodies, but multiple, 4 different melodies sometimes going on. It's beautiful. It's like this compound texture, that's counterpoint, what Bach introduced us to. Man, is there so much to chew on there. It's really edifying stuff. And who knows? Maybe we can sneak some of that into metal. That's what I try to do.
Oh yeah, I think it's I think it's there, and as we're gonna see today, you know, we've got some examples of, you know, some of these absurdly heavy metal bands, and they're like, hey, we listen to these guys from the, you know, classical music, and you can hear it in our music, and I've got some examples, which is gonna be really fun. And sometimes it's straight up theft. Shred did a video just yesterday or the day before, and he talks a little bit about this going back. I mean, Richie Blackmore, we all know 035, right? And where did he get it? Well, let's check out this little clip. Shred explains the story.
Crazy thing, Richie Blackmore of Deep Purple stole this riff from Beethoven. One dark night, Richie Blackmore conducted a seance to become inspired. As the clock struck midnight, spirits from the void whispered secrets in Blackmore's ear. Of course, Richie exclaimed, all I have to do is play Beethoven's Fifth Symphony backwards. Fingering the G string has never been so fun, Blackmore thought to himself. Now, if you're just starting out, I want you to play along with me nice and slow. Don't worry, we'll be using 69 speed. Oh, this is really slow here. Yeah, you can't hear the theme really here, but
you can hear it. It is slow. 69 speed is legitimately slow.
It's pretty slow. I don't know if a lot of people know that story, or maybe they just don't care about the story. I find it fascinating that you can take a piece like Beethoven's Fifth Symphony and then kind of restructure it to come up with, you know, your own theme. I mean, that is really cool. And Richie actually, I mean, that song Smoke on the Water is like one of the most popular beginner guitar riffs like ever, you know, and the fact that he just lifted it from Beethoven is hilarious and brilliant.
Yeah. Is that retrograde or inversion?
Well, you know, it's funny because that was retrograde that I showed in the video there, but Richie at other times will say it's inversion, and you can actually get it both ways. So you can actually take, I wrote this all out. I'm going to do a longer video on it, but you can literally get 035 with retrograde and inversion on Beethoven's Fifth Symphony Fate theme, Fate Knocking at the Door, which makes me believe that maybe this is just like a music of the spheres, you know, meant to be just built into the fabric of reality kind of sound, because you hear 035 in, well, here's the funny thing. You hear it in blues. It's a universal theme in blues. So you know how we're talking about, did metal come from blues or classical? Both, perhaps. And maybe the blues came from classical, you know? So this goes really deep, essentially. And I don't know. Somebody write a book on it or something.
I bet there are some dissertations out there. So Blackmore did. So metal and classical, I mean, there's always been some kind of a love affair there. But I've got some examples here of some bands, some more modern day bands, heavier bands that have done the same thing. So let's jump here to Necrophagist.
Yeah.
Necrophagist.
Oh, so this is going to be heavy.
Yeah. Death metal band. And these guys heavily inspired by, I've never heard of this composer, Prokofiev. Yeah. Okay. So he does this. It's the Romeo and Juliet suite. And so let's listen to Prokofiev's Romeo and Juliet, and then we'll listen to the ending of Only Ash Remains. So here's Prokofiev.
that's good.
Man, so much drama.
I love like the low end brass. It almost reminds me of Hans Zimmer, and his modern approach. And no doubt, Hans was influenced by guys like Prokofiev. I'm thinking of like Inception.
Oh yeah.
It's just really low tone that represents time slowing down, and sound waves that are low travel slower, which makes sense, I guess. But
that's brilliant symmetry there. Well, so Necrophagists, they're big fans, and so here's the outro to their song "Only Ash Remains." Let's see if it sounds similar.
Oh yeah. That's totally the idea. Thus, we have proven the relationship between classical and metal.
Same thing. Yep.
That's funny. So there was people on this Reddit board who were like, "Nope, there's no similarities between classical and metal. It's ridiculous."
Well, they said
were they like the music theory nerds.
Yeah, they said there's no more similarities with classical and metal than there are with classical and any other genre. So they're like, look, they all use the 12 notes from Western scales, and they all use 3/4 time and 4/4 time. And
they're missing it. You're missing it. It's about the expressive characteristics, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, metal is strong expression. Beethoven was strong expression, right? Beethoven was all about passion. He was the guy who said to play a wrong note is insignificant, but to play without passion is inexcusable. Passion, right?
Yeah.
That's the secret sauce, and that's really what you're hearing in metal is extremely passionate people.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about those guys, but Symmetry and Diogo both agree that they heard it. Yeah. The relationship between the classical piece there and the metal piece. So it's definitive.
It's
we just proved it.
I mean,
yeah, no, it is.
the Richie Blackmore, thing is much more subtle. And I think, oh man, I don't know how practical that is, but I actually use that idea all the time. That's my whole Bach Verses series on YouTube is based on that concept.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I just think it's really cool, but maybe not practical. Like it's hard to figure out retrograde and inversion and stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there are some people that, like Trans-Siberian Orchestra, right? They'll literally take a classical piece and just make it metal.
That's the other way to do it.
Which is great.
Yeah, just arrange it. Yeah, that's another way.
Yeah. And but then other people it's more like, hey, I'm inspired by this piece. I'm going to pay homage to it, but I'm going to change up. So for instance, our next guy, so Luca Torelli. Luca Torelli is one of my favorite guitarists and composers. People probably know him from the band Rhapsody, which changed to Rhapsody of Fire. He now has like 5 or 6 side project bands. But he obviously is very, very influenced by classical music. And I read an interview with him, and he said Chopin, or as the name of this episode, Chopin. He got his chops from Chopin.
And he does have a lot of chops, or he did, man.
Yeah. Although what's funny is in the interview I read, he's like, I am terrible at guitar. That's why I like to spend my time like arranging and orchestrating the music. And it's like, dude, you shred like there's no tomorrow. Like, but he thinks he's terrible.
The more you shred, the more you realize you don't. It's totally true.
Yeah.
I mean, dude, like Chopin was so scary. I was just watching people play Chopin on TikTok yesterday. It's like it's a whole nother level. Like it goes beyond like what shredders do, because you're shredding like 2 guitars at the same time is more like what it is because of the 2 hands.
Right? Oh yeah.
I mean, it's out of control.
It's crazy. Yeah. So Torelli, he said, Chopin is one of his favorites. And specifically, he likes, he said probably his favorite piece was Nocturne. So here is Chopin's Nocturne. Yeah, here's Nocturne in C sharp. Here's a little piece. There's that trill.
The devil's trill. I love this side of Chopin, like the really haunting, lyrical, melodic side. Oh man, it's so good. I was just using his funeral march in one of my videos, which is another good example of that side of his composition for Jeff Beck's memory video, R.I.P. Jeff Beck.
Yeah.
And that video clip showed, when you talk, I mean, the emotion, obviously, and stringed instruments, but like the emotion on her face, right? There's another connection with metal, right? Like it like hurts to play.
The guitar face.
Yeah, the guitar, the violinist there was
when
like,
you're bending your G string just right, you know? Yeah.
Well, so Chopin,
you feel it.
There's a lot of Chopin stuff that's like virtuosic, right? But this is Chopin just being like so emotional and it's like the high melody stuff. Haunting. Shred, you used the word haunting. And this is like a really haunting piece.
Check out his dude. Yeah, the funeral march sometimes, same thing, super haunting. I actually played that at a funeral once. I was very haunted. I was haunted by it.
Yeah. So Luca Trelli said this is one of his favorite pieces. So Luca Trelli wrote a piece for Luca Trelli's Rhapsody, which was another iteration of his band. And this one is called Notturno, which is Italian for nocturne, I believe. And so here's his rendition, and you'll see what he does here. Instead of the violin melody, he uses voice and singing for the melody. So let's check this out.
Wow. Is that actually Luca on the cover? Whoever that is. Super
I don't know. I don't know if he spends that much time in the gym.
I think that's more like Prometheus himself.
Yeah. But see what he did there? He took the inspiration of Chopin's piece. It was not identical.
Yeah.
But it was very similar. He used some of the same harmony or some of the same melodies, but he used it in a different way.
See, this
and really
is where
built on it.
This is where I take issue with the nerds. You know, they'll be like, "Oh no, like you didn't play it right or whatever." I'm like, you're missing the point here. Like, I'm just using the inspiration from this artist or some, loosely connected concept with it, and that's great. That's even better because now you're making it your own and you're doing something new. You have to get to this point in your artistic development where you're not just replicating and regurgitating other pieces of art. You have to be able to do your own thing with it. And a lot of times people, just want to see it regurgitated exactly. And that's just not evolution.
So first of all, David This is one of the best descriptions I've ever heard. Sounds
Wow.
like people crying in perfect harmony in the fires of hell.
Well said.
That is such a good description of
Well
what we just
said.
heard.
Should give you $69 million for that comment. We got to start handing out prizes for.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe we'll back it off a little bit from that, tier price point.
We'll start a little bit lower than
69 cents.
Yeah, that's a good starter price.
69 bitcoins.
It's an interesting point, Shred, because I mean, first of all, nothing created is completely original, right? We're all inspired by other stuff. And sometimes it's not necessarily a one-to-one inspiration. It's like sometimes I write a piece of music because of something that I read, not from a piece of music that I heard, right? Or
Yes.
whatever.
Yes.
But we're all inspired. This is good. What did Shakespeare say? He said, borrow widely,
Yeah.
steal wisely.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's the whole point.
But art isn't like this linear process. It's like really asymmetrical. And that's not a bad thing. Like use your creativity and get outside of the box. I don't know. Like my whole, if I'll take Iron Man and play it as Iron Woman, right? Or I don't know. I do this with
Right.
Breaking the Law by Judas Priest. Following the Law. I do a lot of these kind of. Pantera has a song called "I'm Broken." I play "I'm Fixed." It's just a way to kind of, put my own spin on something, but still leverage the original creator and pay homage. But I think that's a really integral part of the creative process is to be able to process input and then deliver output with a little bit of a twist.
No, that's right. I mean, so Pete and I, we dabble in the written arts from time to time. And I don't know, what was that, about 8-10 years ago or something? We got a hold of Aaron Lucassen and we said, hey, we want to write a novel based off of your Into the Electric Castle space opera. And he was like all for it. He gave us permission. We wrote the novel. We never published it, but we do have it. And that was one of his things. He was like, I love the idea that my art is inspiring other art. So he's like, I totally support you. Absolutely. Go ahead and use my stories, my characters. And dude, that's a guy that gets it, right? Art does not, nobody's work exists in a vacuum. And that's okay. It doesn't have to, right?
You have to get there in your mind. I take big issue with metalheads in particular on this because a lot of metalheads are very non-creative. They'll be like critiquing my tone, like, oh, Shred, you have like too many synthesizers and orchestra elements. We just want to hear what you're playing, just the guitar part. I'm like, first of all, you're just trying to like bust me on technique is what they're doing. They're trying to like that's not musical. If you're trying to make music based on perfect technical proficiency, you're not going to impress anybody, right? Like it's about the emotive quality. Game. Yeah, it's a losing game, Pete. It is a losing game. And you can't let other people take you off track like that. They're playing like this ego contest, right? And that you're missing the point. Like if you want to be a successful artist, try to make people feel something and stop trying to impress people with like your grandiose technique or I don't know, whatever. No, it's not going to work. It just will not work.
Well, so Diogo, you might have some insight into this, but I don't know what this means. We all know that modern talking are the ones who actually inspire metalheads.
That doesn't make any sense, Diogo.
I don't know what that means, but you're talking about, who's actually inspiring metalheads. And I think you're being facetious, but I'd really like to know what that point is, because what exactly is it that is inspiring metalheads, right? Why, they do all these personality studies and they're like, oh, people that listen to metal are very open-minded, which is one of the reasons why metalheads like forms of music. This is what the quote unquote science says, right? They people that listen to metal have, are open to new ideas and stuff. But then when you talk to a metalhead about music that's not metal, they're not the most open-minded.
That's more what I experience. Yeah. Like we're not in a good place right now as metalheads. Like I'm down on metalheads. Like we got to start Man, I don't know. I don't know, guys.
We need to renew Shred's faith in the metalheads.
Well, we have to start listening to more varieties of music.
Diogo said it's the band Modern Talking. I don't know that band, but I'm gonna assume that they're not the ones. Yeah. Oh yeah. He said it was a joke. It's 80s disco. Okay. 80s disco. Yeah. Well, some metal bands might be inspired by 80s disco. I don't know. You
could totally be inspired by disco. Like I learned today that song Video Killed the Radio Star, that was Hans Zimmer. I never knew that.
Really?
Hans
Zimmer was the keyboardist in that Video Killed the Radio Star. You can see him in the video.
Oh, weird.
And then he went on took a total left turn, right? And got into film music.
Yeah.
But that's a great example of evolving as an artist,
because what didn't Danny Elfman do the same thing? He was like originally
Boingo?
A rock band. Yeah, Boingo. That's what it was. Yeah. Yep. And then he got into film music, scoring.
Yeah. Like develop, evolve. Don't just like start with Metallica and then never go anywhere from there. Or even worse, you start with like Cannibal Corpse and then never move on from death metal. It's like, you can, not that you can't, keep some of those elements, but evolve, change over time and expand, and as metalheads, like we're so like inclusive or exclusive is the right word, right? We're like, no, you're not part of our little group here, because you're doing something slightly different. Come on. Yeah. Like everybody hates Polyphia right now. I'm like, what is wrong? Get over it. Like,
which is weird.
Pushing things forward.
I'm not the biggest fan of Polyphia just because I feel like sometimes it gets so technical that it's not actually as enjoyable to listen to. But but absolutely, I mean, what they're doing, mad respect. But so our next example maybe fits into what you're saying here, Shred, because it's Flesh God Apocalypse. Now, for anybody that doesn't listen to Flesh God Apocalypse, they're an Italian symphonic metal band, but they're like so metal. Like their drummer is one of the fastest drummers on earth, hands down. I'm a big fan of Flesh God. Anyway, they're obviously really, really big fans of a lot of classical music. So I saw this interview with their front man, and he was like, Tchaikovsky is the guy.
Dude, Russians, Prokofiev was Russian, Tchaikovsky, Russian, Stravinsky. The Russians really have influenced metal music. If you think about it, it's really interesting.
Oh, they have some of the coolest stuff. So anyway, here's a little piece from Tchaikovsky. This is Piano Concerto number 1. Wait, when it says number 1 and then like OP 23, what is the OP?
Opus.
Okay. So this is piano
opus.
So this is Tchaikovsky's Piano Concerto number 1, Opus 23. Here we go.
You gotta love Tchaikovsky. I also credit Tchaikovsky with the greatest Christmas piece of all time, which isn't a Christmas piece at all, but the Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy.
Oh yes,
the Nutcracker.
Very cool.
Man. Yeah, he's so good, so good. It's the Russians, man. What's the deal with the Russians?
The Russians, man, they got it. Well, so here is the Italians also have it, because here is Flesh God Apocalypse. This is it's off their album King. It's part of the intro, which I can't remember the name of, and then it goes into the song In Aeternum. Here we go.
smokes. That was
Good
wild.
gosh. Yeah, they're so
hopefully we don't get
unbelievable.
copyrighted for that, Luke, because that was a long clip. But
I know. I couldn't help it. It was the way
I knew you
it builds. Yeah, Shred is like, I can see. I would have cut it off here. Luke couldn't stop. The way that builds is so gorgeous. It is gorgeous in how it just keeps getting a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger until who said Symmetry was like, I feel like I'm going into battle.
Yeah,
that is it. That is this feeling like you start getting stronger and stronger and stronger.
Yeah.
Man,
that was really well done. Look at David's comment. Whoever that was in the portrait was a total boss.
Bare-chested, lower half body.
That guy's shoulder width was like out here. He was just a super wide-shouldered boss there.
Yeah. So, and you can hear like in the Tchaikovsky piece, it was the dun dun dun.
Yeah.
And then you could hear that same like type of like rhythmic movement in what Flesh God is doing. You can hear the elements of Tchaikovsky in there. And
that drummer was insane too. It's hard to get away with that kind of playing and have it work, but that was working somehow. But he was playing a gazillion beats and it all seemed to somehow work.
Wildly impressive.
His their song The Violation, my gosh, like I'm like, there's no way a human being is playing that. It has to be a drum machine. And then I saw a live video of him doing it, and I'm like, I just don't even understand. It's like Raymond Herrera.
Raymond Herrera.
Raymond Herrera. Yeah,
yep.
It's like him on cocaine or something. I don't understand it. It's so unbelievably fast. Anyway,
hail Satan, friends. Well said, Dave.
Hail Satan,
well
friends.
said.
Yeah, so
we should all make portraits of ourselves, looking just super boss like that, like Prometheus.
Matt did last year, 2 years ago.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
He did like a comic of the Great Metal Podcast. Yeah.
Commission Matt to
yeah, he did a great job. That's fun stuff.
I just want to look like I'm on juice, like, not normal. Like, give me an extra 50 pounds of muscle. That's what I want. WAP infused muscle, WAP juice infused.
Yeah.
I think so far we're proving that metal and classical work together. Like, those nerds can suck it on Reddit.
At least playing
as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. The nerds can't say. Well, there's no question they go really well together. I will say my biggest what gets me to turn classical music off is I start getting the hunger for distortion, for distorted guitar. And when I'm like, I need some distorted guitar, I switch it off,
really
and then I go to a metal band.
I've been thinking about this. Now that you mentioned distorted guitars, we're talking about tone quality, timbre, and I was just watching this Vanity Fair interview with Hans Zimmer, the film composer, and he like goes to these places where people like build houses that are actually musical instruments, and so you can like hit the house, with these different bows and stuff, and the house has like these different metal orbs that are coming off in asymmetrical ways, and it's all about unique.
What the hell?
It's so bizarre, and but it all comes down to unique tone quality, and distorted electric guitar. The Kinks were the first ones to do this. They pierced their speaker cone with a needle, like a sewing needle, and that's how they started to get that tone, that fuzzy tone. And then Tony Iommi of Black Sabbath, he was like, listen, amplifier company, Laney or whoever it was, he was like, I need to like figure out how to get this tone without turning the amp, to 666, just blowing everything away. Like, can you actually modify, and reproduce this tone at a more reasonable volume, right? And that's how we got into this distorted guitar realm. And that, I think, I'm starting to think that the tone quality is more important than the actual notes you play. Because if you think about like Hans Zimmer's stuff and Inception, and it's all just like pedal tones and drones, but a really interesting tone quality.
Okay. This is Shred. I don't know how
See what
you
I'm
do
saying?
this.
See what I'm saying?
I don't know
It's like,
if you see my outlines before we go on the show, but you come up with the best freaking transitions. So I actually have a piece that I grabbed, a classical music piece that I specifically wrote on here. This is for drone metal and atmospheric metal lovers. And this was a piece I stumbled upon.
wow.
I've never heard of this guy before. So his name is Ligeti. Giorgi Ligeti. I don't know him.
What country is that?
A Requiem.
I don't know,
nice.
but
Requiem,
he
nice.
spells his name G-Y-O with an umlaut R-G-Y.
Probably Italy again, since we're talking about Italy.
Ligeti. Yeah, Ligeti sounds Italian. So let's listen to this, because this is like, it's what you're talking about. It's more of like
Tone
sounds.
quality.
It's sounds, not necessarily so much like melodies, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the Requiem by Ligeti.
Whoa. Sounds like a fart.
It seems like we should have been watching like Tom and Jerry or something.
Oh yeah. The animated cartoon scoring.
Yeah.
Hey, Luke, when was that written?
Oh, that's a great question. Let me look it up real quick.
It sounds like aleatoric
Ligeti.
music, which is like chance music. It basically just to the performers, it's like play some kind of random stuff here and there, whenever. And,
so it was written between 1963 and 1965.
Yeah, that's definitely aleatoric.
Oh, he's Hungarian.
Hungarian.
He's
that's
Hungarian. Okay.
Hungarian.
Yeah. Yeah. So symmetry is like, sounds like a junior high school band. That it really does. Now,
come on.
The
now.
techniques and stuff
Symmetry.
going on there, the techniques are incredibly skillful.
Advanced. Yeah.
Right. They're very advanced, but it does not sound pleasing to the ear.
This is not going to be like a Spotify #1 hit. You're not going to see this in the same playlist as like Cardi B or Lil Wayne
or Metallica.
This is good,
right.
This is the about of him is a leading composer of the branch of avant-garde music concerned principally with shifting masses of sound and tone colors. Masses of sound and tone colors.
So he's just like, I've got all these notes. Let's just blast them around a little bit. When that chick is on the flute, just like, just like going crazy. It's the goofiest thing I've ever seen.
Well,
but
yeah, I mean, the 20th century, we got
technical.
into some weird stuff, man. Like it got really bizarre. And I appreciate it because, not that I want to listen to that all the time, but like we just went to the absolute extreme in every direction, like we did it all. And then now we know what happens when we do that. We don't sell any records.
Well, yeah, I mean, sometimes you have to like see where the boundaries are. I think that when you get into atonal music, a lot of times you're beyond the boundaries, but there's a place for it. Like
there is a place for it.
The band Sun O. I don't know if anybody listens to Sun. It's like Sun O,
yeah.
and then like three closing paragraphs.
Yep.
They do a lot of this kind of stuff, like just like drone metal. I think they have one song. It's like 28 minutes of like one note just droning on. And
yeah,
there are times when I'm like doing something and I'll just throw on some Sun O.
and that fits. Yeah,
and it fits.
If you can use it sparingly, I remember when I was studying this kind of stuff in college, my composition teacher was like, now I'm going to show you some crazy stuff, but he's like, use it sparingly. Like, don't get off into this, into the weeds where you're just doing this crazy stuff all the time. Like Symmetry mentioned Frank Zappa. And of course, Frank Zappa was heavily influenced by guys like Igor Stravinsky, which is where this kind of music that we just listened to is coming from. A lot of his kind of techniques. So if you can work it in a little bit here, it's like a seasoning or a spice. You don't want to have a whole dish that's like just turmeric and ginger. That's something you want to like just sparingly use, to add some flavor.
Well, that's a great point because like one of my problems with Michelangelo Battio is that he will sweep pick for like 3 solid minutes. And I'm like, oh my gosh, man, stop sweep picking. But what's
interesting about him though? Well, finish your point. Yeah, no.
Well, I was just gonna say, but if you're listening to a solo by, Michael Romeo or John Petrucci, and they have like one little section of sweep picking, it adds this really cool dimension to the solo. But I don't want to just sit here and listen to sweep picking for 3 minutes.
Well, MAB, I love you, MAB, by the way. But so Mab is on tour with Man of War right now. And what you see over and over again is that guys like Mab and Marty Friedman and ultra virtuosos, they need constraints. Chris Broderick, Chris Broderick is playing with In Flames now. He was doing a solo thing, but it's just too much. Like when you leave like these hyper virtuosos to their own devices, they start talking in different languages that no one can understand, right?
They go too far.
They go too far. So if you have these constraints, we were talking about this recently, you got to have limitations on your art to make it accessible. And and so that's the move. Like take a guy, who's got crazy chops, and then give him some structure. That's what Dave Mustaine did for Marty Friedman, and we got Tornado of Souls.
Right? Yeah, yeah. Well, so I don't know, Ligeti, metalheads. If any of you guys out there are drone metal fans, you might be into them.
I like that kind of stuff. Like, but Ron Jarzombek did make it metal. If anybody knows Ron Jarzombek.
Is he the one that does the metal ukuleles?
Oh, no. That's Rob Scallion.
Oh, yeah. Never mind.
No, Ron Jarzombek writes like 12-tone tone rows.
Oh, yes.
He's more like Arnold Schoenberg, the guy who wrote that weird Pierre Lunaire piece about the moon decapitating a guy.
That is so weird. That is just the weirdest
it's
piece
a
of
bit
music.
strange, isn't it? It's a bit strange.
Yeah. Okay. I gotta get to this one. Out of all of the classical music I've listened to, I think this is not necessarily my favorite piece, but this guy, Shostakovich.
Another Russian.
Oh,
Look,
my gosh.
On the Russians. Yeah. Oh, this guy's nuts.
Dude.
I love Shostakovich.
I can't get enough of this guy. This is also one of the coolest performances. These people. So this is
you missed Rachmaninoff though. He's another Russian that metalheads love.
It's true, and I have some Rachmaninoff coming up. Yep, but Shostakovich, this guy, I couldn't stop listening to him. I was like, I need more Shostakovich. Give me another piece. And he is so effing metal. My notes on here is like coming off of like a black metal run. I was like, Shostakovich is black metal.
Yes.
And so here is a piece that's a string quartet number 8, and this also like you can tell.
The one with the
people playing this. There's some chugging. The people playing this are so into it, and I guarantee you they listen to metal. So anyway, here's Shostakovich's string quartet number 8. The chick in the white shirt. Watch.
reminds me of
Wow.
Gent a little bit. Those guys are all right, very syncopated
does.
with the chugs. Those guys are
Yeah.
all in like frequency 666 right there. They're like dialed into a whole nother realm of reality.
Oh, they are so into it. It's not even funny. Yeah, David, either they love it or they're held at gunpoint, stressed all hell. It's so true. They're so into it. But that, like, again, can you imagine that piece with some double bass and an electric guitar? I mean, that is so powerful.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
No,
man.
that kind of stuff sucks you in to its world. I remember just getting heavy into that stuff in college when I was studying composition, and there's some kind of magical elixir effect there when you listen to a whole piece of that, like you're kind of like just transported into an alternate dimension of reality because it demands all your focus, and the sounds that are happening really bend your mind. It's almost like hallucinogenic drugs. It puts you into an altered state of consciousness. It really does.
Music.
Yeah, well, who was it?
Hallucinogenic drug.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a T-shirt for you.
Who was it? Was it D. Snyder or somebody that was like, music is my drug? That whole thing, like 30 years ago, it was like, music is my drug. I don't remember. Anyway, yeah, no, so like, but like the high screeching and stuff of the violence. Here's something I don't understand. Pete and I were talking about this before the show. How the hell do you play a violin? There's no frets. They're so accurately hitting every note. In fact, there's two people shredding the shit out of those violins, hitting the exact same notes. There's no reference point. I don't understand how a violin
mind
works.
blowing.
The secret is you have to meet the devil down at the crossroads at midnight, and then you make a deal. Is what you do.
Dude, that actually makes more
The
sense.
soul exchange, my brother.
I thought it was going to be 69 hours per day of practice.
Well, it takes that too.
No.
It takes that too. But then you have to make a deal with the dark one, because I mean that's
You
next
need to
level,
hit those
right?
low notes and slow down time so you can get 69 hours of practice per day.
You gotta have like a bass player nearby so you can slow down time. Yeah, stretch the gravitational field.
Yeah. So David, this is actually a great point. We should do a show on this. He said most of us have heard metal covers of classical pieces, but he's like, I really urge you all to check out the opposite.
Yeah,
it's really true. I remember the first time I ever heard it back. In the mid '90s or something. I bought it was the London Philharmonic playing all Pink Floyd pieces.
Oh yeah,
and I was like, this is enchanting. I was not a big fan of Pink Floyd at the time, but I couldn't stop listening to the London Phil playing Pink Floyd songs. So
yeah, they did a great version of Comfortably Numb. I remember listening to that. Yep.
And yeah, S&M. So yeah,
Metallica's
great
S&M,
point, David. We should do an episode on that. Metal pieces played in an orchestral symphonic style. Like without the, guitar and drums and all that kind of stuff. It's a really different experience and it's really cool. Okay.
The orchestra in general, man, like if you're interested in making music, get into orchestral elements because that creates just like, different textures and tone qualities that you just can't get otherwise. I mean, guitar, drums, and bass are amazing. Don't get me wrong. But there's more. Remember, Yngwie said more is more. It's true.
That's right.
And I mean, today, guitar, drums, and bass, with really your other element is like electronics, right? I mean, the fact that all the sounds you can make with a small set of instruments have been expanded
100%. You don't have to like hire an orchestra. That's not what I'm saying at all. Like that's expensive and impractical. But yeah, use start with like synthesizers, right? And get it that way. That's a fantastic way to go about it.
Well, and I think the other thing Pete was alluding to is, you're just looking for tones, right?
Yes,
and so you don't even you can make a lot of tones on a guitar aside from picking a note or strumming a chord.
That's true too.
Yeah.
And even beyond that, you take your iPhone or whatever phone you have and record the environment. Like hit your house with a spoon or something and see what happens. Record that. I actually do this stuff a lot. I just use my phone to pick up sounds and then put that into my content. Like,
dude,
it works.
When an album,
go ahead.
A
perfect example of that is if you go back to Mario Paint. I was just watching the Gaming Historians documentary on Mario Paint, and it had a music composer, and the sounds, there was like a cat and a dog, and it made like meow and woof sounds, but like perfectly in pitch. And it had like the Goombas made like Mario sounds in pitch, and the music, if you go up and listen, if you YouTube like Mario Paint songs, it's amazing. The tones, right, are very unexpected tones for music, but they create this 8-bit or 16-bit like reference. Like you hear one of those in any song done in it, all of a sudden is like
it's called chiptune.
Yeah, chiptune.
Yeah,
but it's that MIDI, right? I mean, it's just it's just a tone, and you can do it. One of my favorite when I particularly doom metal, when I turn on a doom metal album and it starts with like rainfall and or wind, I know I'm in for a good time. It's about to be a great ride. And it's like it
sets like the atmosphere, right? It's like
yes,
it's a very atmospheric thing,
yes.
Which is kind of like pedal tones or drones.
No, that's exactly what it is, right? Yeah. And there are some bands that actually will use they'll use like rainfall as like part of the music, not just like an intro, but like in the song.
Yeah, it's a great idea
because it's creating a certain tone,
texture.
So
that's get outside the box. You stop trying to like sound exactly like Metallica or Slayer or whoever. Like, like this is so hard. Put some cats. You can. Yeah, sure, whatever. Meow.
Good
so
stuff.
So speaking of doom metal, I want to get to Rachmaninoff.
Oh yeah, dude, rock. Did you do the C sharp? His C sharp one?
It is C sharp, so it's Prelude, Opus 3, number 2 in C sharp. Is this his best one?
I was shredding this when I was coming up with a way to play it last year or something like that, maybe 2 years ago. But man, I should have like continued with that because it was making me come up with new techniques and stuff, and it was so much fun.
Dude, I recognized this piece from Trans-Siberian Orchestra, but I thought it was a TSO original. I didn't know that this was Rachmaninoff.
It's rock.
So yeah, but this guy, this pianist is absolutely incredible. So anyway, here's Rachmaninoff Prelude, Opus 3, number 2. Unexpected directions.
Oh, this part. Oh.
Yeah, this part.
Oh. Pure chaos. You can't beat this guy.
So I'm pretty sure none of those notes actually go together, and yet it still sounds incredible.
Yeah, that one is so good. I mean, all of his stuff is so good. But again, it comes back to the central premise of what metal is, which is strong expression. At least that's the way I've been defining it recently, and it makes sense. That's strong expression too.
Oh yeah.
Ergo, it's metal. You know,
although dude, Symmetry did accuse this guy of hamming it up just a bit. Although I think he was just into it. I think he was just into it.
Dude, you have to ham it. You know how boring it is to watch people who don't ham? Like if you're up on stage and you're just like, oh yeah, I'm playing all these notes really fast. I'm so good at handling my hardwood. Oh, I can stroke the G string, so perfect. No one cares about that stuff. Like you got to be engaging the crowd. Like, look, you're having a communication. You're having a conversation, right, with the audience. That's what you're doing when you're performing. Here you're having a conversation with yourself.
Right. I went to the Messiah over Christmas with this classical group here in town, and they the tenor was like reading along intently, like the whole time, and making these faces. Like he was so into it. I was like, I love it. That guy loves what he's doing, right? And when someone loves what they're doing, it comes across. Yeah, that's the passion.
Show the passion. That's what Beethoven said. It's the most important thing. It's not as important if you're playing wrong notes. Rock was just playing wrong notes, right? It's more important that you show passion and that you're enjoying what you're doing.
Yeah. All right. I want to get to one more here. This one is probably going to be the most familiar to people. Franz Liszt's. This is for the death metal lover, Totentanz, which means the dance of death.
Oh.
And so here we go. This has been heavily influential on a lot of metal musicians.
So last one on our list, huh? Last one on the list.
Good one. Good one. All right, let's check out Totentanz.
Guess what? 035 was in there. That's crazy.
That's crazy. We literally just went full circle unintentionally.
Yeah.
Started with 035, just ended with 035.
Liszt was, people say that piano technique stopped with Liszt. Like it didn't evolve past Liszt. Like he took it as far as it could go. They could be right. I mean, like his etudes are just like unplayable is what most accomplished pianists say. That was a cool piece though. I love like the low notes there. Super metal.
Yeah, very, very metal. A lot of metal guys that I read interviews with were like, yeah, love myself some Franz. Okay. So I mean, there it is. There's some new.
We proved it. New. Metal is classical and vice versa. I just heard the 035 myself. So, it's there, but again, like, it's how we define metal, right? And kind of the way we've been, because episode 1, I guess we were talking about this. How do you define metal? It's not easy to define a genre of music, but it really makes sense with this overarching theme of just strong expression, because that's what distorted guitar is, screaming, fast drums, right?
Yeah, no, that's right. And what's great about metal in general is you can have like, a death metal band, like Flesh God Apocalypse, right? They're playing at 666 beats per minute, literally 666 beats per minute. The drummer's playing like 48th notes, and then it'll all come down and it's just a keyboard, just a piano. And then it comes back up and it's blasting your face off, melting people's bodies. I mean, it's like that. Metal has so much of that. If you listen to country music, it's a guy on a guitar strumming away, and that's just what the song is. And that's fine.
Don't listen to the C word, country music.
Oh boy.
Oh,
And so anyway, this is super awesome. Let us know what classical music you guys listen to, what we should check out. David, I think it was you that recommended. I'm going to start working on an episode about metal songs played orchestrally. I know some out there, but there's probably a lot more that I don't know.
We can't do too much classical and metal mock-ups like that. You can't overdo that. It's like one of the greatest topics. Oh man, like I love getting into this world of classical music. You know, it's like it takes so much to get you there, but once you're there, you never want to leave.
Well,
yeah, it's
and I
true.
think a reverse episode would really highlight how a lot of the songwriting techniques and how those things do overlap, right?
Right. Oh, right. Yeah, you'll get a much better feel for that.
Yeah, and if you guys have any ideas, email us. We want to hear from you.
Totally.
Like, topical suggestions.
Oh yeah.
Maybe even bands and stuff that we don't know about.
Yep.
You know, whatever. Just spitball some ideas.
So there it is. greatmetalpodcast@gmail.com. We're also on not Twitter, unfortunately. We should be on Twitter. I'll get us a Twitter account.
You're more of a Twitter guy, Luke. Yeah, you should be on Instagram. Twitter.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter. Okay, guys, super fun hang. Thanks so much for joining. And until next time, remember that the world ends with you, so make it metal.